Alrighty, this is going to be another story. Um, and it was actually a movie I watched recently on YouTube, which I'm gonna link down below. So if you guys want to watch it, you can watch it, especially if you'll resonate with the story. It actually inspired me, and I'm sure there's a lot of like different ways of looking at what this movie is trying to say, but I'm going to basically share my side. So I'm going to share in story format. I'm not really going to get into the movie itself. Like I said, I'll share the link down below. So, if it intrigues you based on whatever I'm saying, you guys can watch it. It is a really interesting movie that I would recommend. And plus it's like free on YouTube. So if you want, you can watch it. Um, but yeah, as I was watching it, it actually was reminding me of like what the masculine collective is going through, and basically how they start to awaken and start to heal. And I felt called to make this, especially since the last video that I made, I was tapping into the masculine collective and what was currently happening, and it does feel like you guys are healing. It does feel like you're facing your shadows, your wounds, your inner child, and you're starting to heal. Um, and I know I've mentioned this quite a few times because I do believe that's the case. And again, this story is going to mention this aspect, is how women are leading the way to this shift. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've actually seen quite a few men now on social media make videos about this, and they themselves are saying this as well. And I'm like, wow, okay, so there are men out there that see this and they honor this and they understand that, women are leading the way in this, and that's okay. This is actually how you guys wake up, right? And do your own healing work. It's because it's love of a woman. Like, yes, it can hurt with whatever heartbreak you go through, but essentially when you're ready to face that, she's your greatest initiation to healing and awakening, right? But anyway, um so like I said, the story is going to be similar to what the movie, because this is kind of what I understood, one of the perspectives of what was happening. So yeah, what is happening in the masculine collective, and again, everyone's going to be at different stages of what I'm, describing in this story. But imagine a man, represents you in the seat of consciousness of, like, basically you're driving a car and it's out in the middle of the desert, right? And you're driving a car. So the car represents the conscious mind, okay? And the desert represents the subconscious mind. And you're driving, right? And you go and pick up this woman, right? Let's just say you're a taxi driver or whatever, which in the movie that's what it is. You pick up this woman, and she intrigues you, you have a conversation with her, and then something happens and like she disappears, and you essentially go back and you do the same thing. You go pick up this exact same woman and you know have a conversation with her, disappears, and it's like on repeat, right? So essentially what's happening here is that when a man is not ready to face his wounds, face his shadows. And by the way, this is also like can happen with women as well when they're not ready. They go into repeating of cycles, repeating of going through mental loops of like, why this happened to me when I was like 5 years old, or, you know, I never had a successful career, like whatever, right? Whatever self criticism that you say to yourself, right? That's the mental loop, right? Which is like you're not getting ahead and out of this desert. What's essentially happening is like you keep feeling like you're stuck in the same place, because it's like you move, but then like it glitches or whatever, and you go back to square one, and you keep repeating, and you keep going through these same scenarios, cycles, thought patterns. And especially when you're unconscious. Again, like I said, this happens with women as well. It happens with everybody, right? Of constantly repeating the same things until we start to be like, what am I doing? Hello, wake up, right? Um but again, kind of switching back just on the masculine focus and why the woman is the initiator and leading the way for men to wake up, for men to start seeing clearer and start healing their stuff. So essentially, him picking up the woman, there's two different ways of looking at this, okay? And him having like a conversation with her, and then it gets to a point where perhaps maybe he can't hold the conversation, or it overwhelms him, or she asks him a question where he like freaks out, doesn't like the question, gets defensive, and that's the glitch, right? Where she disappears and he has to start over again, and he picks her up, right? And it's a repetitive cycle. He's not going forward. It's a repetitive cycle, right? So there's two ways of looking at who this woman is. First way is obviously an actual woman that, you know, he knows, he's connected with, and this could be a relationship, this could be a mother figure, it could be, usually it tends to be in relationship, right? Because that woman will only mirror back the mother wounds that he still hasn't looked at, right? um and you know, you meet somebody in a romantic sense, you date them, she's mirroring stuff to you and vice versa, but again, I'm just concentrating on the man here, the masculine, since again I made my most recent video about what's happening, and I do think this is also what's happening to the masculine collective. You guys were stuck in that loop, you were stuck in that desert, constantly looping, not moving forward. And so a woman comes in, a physical woman comes in, and can start kind of like, she taps you on the shoulder, right? She's triggering things in you, she's mirroring things in you so that you can start facing these things. And obviously in the beginning, when it's too much, it's too like you can't deal with it, then like she'll leave you, or you guys break up or whatever, and then you know, you can find another woman, and essentially you're doing the same thing, you're looping, and again, this happens with women too, okay? Because I know some guys in the comments will be like, but what? Yeah, I know, I'm just concentrating on the masculine. I know, like, I know. I've experienced this in my own life as well. I repeated cycles until I learned, until I was like, wait, what the heck is going on? And I did a lot of work on that. And I can say I'm like so past whatever cycles I was through. I can see it clearer now. But okay, yeah, cuz I'm going to keep losing if I keep switching. So I just want you guys to know, like, I'm just touching on one aspect, right? This isn't men against women, and but no. I'm just touching on one aspect. I don't want to keep switching because I'm going to just lose my momentum. Um so this woman in the car in this story, like I said, actually there's three ways this can be represented: by a physical person, by also your counterpart's soul, so whoever you're meant to be with, her soul, um and the feminine aspect within yourself that you have denied for so long. Because again, That's how you were conditioned. You grew up, right? You weren't connected with your emotions. You were taught that vulnerability was a weakness when it's not, right? And then there's like fear of commitment and all these things, right? The feminine aspect of yourself you have pushed away, you have denied. And thing is, guys, again, these energies live within us. So even if you have pushed her away and shoved her out in the desert, you constantly are picking her up. And so she'll come in, right? And this is when it's like maybe you meet somebody and she stirs some romantic feelings in you, and then you get scared and you push her away. That's the repetitive cycle. Bam, you pushed her away, now you have to restart. I've mentioned this before, you can't complete cycles and move forward onto like a new cycle if you don't learn from the old cycle that you want to move away from. That's not how life works. You can't graduate to something better if you haven't actually learned from the past, from your old repetitive patterns, because essentially you realize that you're the one steering the ship. You're the one who's attracting these relationships for your own benefit, even if these relationships were quote unquote toxic. They were mirroring something to you that you needed to heal within yourself. And this is the self responsibility that I was talking about, that a lot of you men now are starting to take on, are starting to awaken to, right? If you're not doing that, I'm not talking to you. Like, you're maybe stuck in that repetitive cycle of looping. And I'm not judging it, I'm not criticizing it. We all go through this, okay? This is just supposed to help broaden your perspective and see maybe what stage you're at and what is currently going on in the masculine awakening and healing. So, yeah, whenever that feminine energy polarity within you comes, it's like you invite her for a little bit, but then you reject her, right? You reject that aspect of yourself. You reject that feeling side of yourself. And yeah, you keep pushing her away. And then, like I said, there's the other aspect of you actually dating someone and then her mirroring that stuff to you, all the wounds to you, and then you eventually sabotage that, push her away, and there you go. You're starting your cycle once more, right? And in the movie, this is happening like a lot. It's on repeat, right? And also, like I said, the feminine soul that taps, that's a more gentler way, because it's a very subconscious thing. You don't even really realize it, but she's almost like a different way that she initiates you into it, and it's mostly probably done through like a physical female that you meet, and it's just softer, right? Or she pushes out your feminine polarity to come out and to like kind of be like, hey, remember me, integrate me, be with me. It's safe to be here. And so in the movie, this feminine that he keeps picking up, she keeps trying to see if he can actually remember her, because every time he would repeat the cycle, he would completely forget. He wouldn't even know who she was, and she would keep having conversations with him. And essentially that is what happens in your own consciousness, in your own awakening, of like all this like feminine aspects and energies, they keep tapping you on the shoulder, like, remember, remember, remember. And it is a gentle thing, to be honest, because it can only work until you are ready to remember. And so he actually starts to remember. He starts to remember slowly about, like, wait a minute, I've seen you before. I've talked to you before. We've talked about the same and he starts to wake up. He even starts remembering like what was on the radio prior to when he picked her up. And to me, that would represent you're starting to see your unconscious ways of being, of how you show up in the world, right? Because at first it's very unconscious. It's you don't even realize, but then you start to be like, wait a minute, I've listened to this before, I've acted this way before, and it's never brought me any good results, right? And And yeah, and then the feminine, when he starts remembering, he's like, wait a minute, I've met you before, we've talked before. And then he starts remembering her name, and then he actually starts remembering the different types of conversations that they had. And to me, that represents, again, multiple things here. Him integrating and accepting the feminine part of himself. So the feeling part, he starts moving into actually feeling his feelings, feeling the pain, feeling the hurt, feeling how perhaps he was mistreated as a child or didn't get the attention that he got from his parents or his mother, right? And he starts feeling it and he starts integrating it. And that's when you start to soften and open. And yeah, that needs to to me, that needs to happen first before you graduate to a different type of female, because you can never actually hold a female that's quote unquote healthy if you don't accept that feminine polarity within yourself. If you don't do the work on yourself, you're going to keep repeating. You're going to keep repeating the same cycles over, for years. For some men, unfortunately, it's for basically the rest of their lives. I do feel like most of you are waking up, but it's unfortunate. For some, they never do. They keep repeating that cycle. And like I said, this awakening is happening because a lot of you are starting to question. You're questioning your patterns, how you do things, who you listen to, who you're hanging out with. Like and this is when this man in the car starts being like, wait a minute, I've listened to this radio, to the same thing. And he starts even saying it as they're saying it, because that's how he starts. This is what is currently happening. And the acceptance of the feminine polarity within yourself, integrating her, being with her, being comfortable to have this feminine side of you, because it doesn't make you masculine, it just makes you balanced, right? Balanced in your feeling, balanced in leading with your heart, right? And when you do that, that's when you have space for the healed feminine to come in. And yes, there's still going to be work, men. Do not think for a second that there's never going to be any challenges. No. No, 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 no. Yes, you might have healed. For those of you men that have healed, there's almost like when that partner comes in, right? And this even happens with women as well. When that partner comes in, it's like, okay, can you hold space now? Because again, healing is cyclical. So yes, our wounding will come back up again. But because you have held space for yourself in this healing, it's like now you can show up differently in the relationship. And yes, things will still come up, but can you be different in it? Can you hold space for her? And she holds space for you, right? Again, I'm just concentrating on the masculine, but like hold space for her, be there for her, and realize that she's just mirroring, yeah, probably past wounds. And it's like, have you actually healed from them? Or do you still need to revisit it, maybe in a different way, in a different perspective, and integrate it more? And yeah, essentially, like the movie had a different ending, but he did like remember her. And he actually remembered how this was actually his wife and what happened, and how he actually, like, they had a great relationship, but then he stopped showing up. And so she disappeared. And so, do you see what I mean? That women are the initiators of you men waking up, because when he started to remember her, he was like, he loved her, he missed her, and he just wanted to be with her. And like I said, it had a different ending, which this is what I mean. It could be looked at in many different ways. So like I'll link the movie so that you guys, if you want, you can watch it. But I thought it was awesome. Like, that's what I got from it. And it connects with what is currently happening in the masculine collective. Again, not for everybody, but for most, for majority. You guys are all in different stages. And yeah, the stage I guess that sucks the most is the repeating of the cycle. It's like you being unconscious and not catching things and you having to repeat because this can go on for years until you finally are like, what's happening? Why am I doing this? But it does feel like for a lot of you, you've been asking yourselves those questions. So you've been catching the cycle, you've been catching that glitching part the last couple of months and even the last couple of weeks. It feels like some of you are kind of revisiting that. And yeah, it feels like you're softening and you're surrendering to that feminine side of you. You're willing to feel your emotions. And that's a beautiful thing because that's how healing starts. This is how you can be an integrated, healed man. You can't cut yourself off from that polarity. You can't cut yourself off from the feminine. She lives within you. Can you open the door for her? Can you hold space for her? Can you feel those? And again, this is also just inner child work, right? Like you could see this through so many different ways, right? But it's just feeling all the pain, all the trauma, everything that you need to feel. Even, by the way, for you men that have really loved a woman but maybe never told her, you were scared too. Those are usually for the men that are really scared of showing their emotions just because you grew up probably in a household where you weren't allowed to show those emotions. And you've I know that you guys have come across a woman where it's like you felt so much love for her, but you couldn't express it. And I get it. It wasn't safe for you. You never felt safe in expressing. And it's like, can you even allow yourself to feel that and accept that within you? Because again, this is how you heal. This is how you look at all the layers and you start unpacking and you start healing and you start feeling. You feel to heal. Anyway, yeah, that was like pretty short story, but I thought that was an amazing example of, like I said, of what's happening currently in the masculine collective, how you guys are healing, and also just how healing works, to be honest. Like this again also just applies for the feminine. Like we also loop, we're unconscious, and then we start to be like, wait a minute, like what am I doing? Questioning our own patterns and then looking at that, right? um but I feel like the feminine just has a different, little bit of a different path on that. But anyway, Um, yeah, I feel like I'm gonna end this here. Feels a good way to complete. And again, it kind of connects with the last message that I made. So if you didn't watch it, go watch it. Because, like I said, I was tapping into what was happening to some of you the last couple of weeks. And again, it makes sense. We're coming to a new time. So right now, it is a good time to look at whatever you need to look at, integrate whatever you need to integrate, and release, move on, take responsibility of your life, your decisions, how you show up in the world, and decide to show up differently, right? Alrighty, guys, sending you lots of love, and I'll see you on the next one.